Well, President Obama and the Chinese Premier, Wen Jiabao, promising to cooperate on economic issues. Still, though, there is no sign that China will do what the U.S. wants it to do, which is let the yuan get stronger. We're going to take you now to one of the best-known observers of China's economy, investor Marc Faber. He is the publisher of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom report, and Marc is joining us on the phone from Thailand. Marc, thank you so much for joining us. So we've seen the yuan rise about 2% this year. Chuck Schumer, congressman here, calling for a 20% rise. What's the most likely scenario, let's say, in the next 6 months?
Well, I think that the yuan will continue to appreciate against the U.S. dollar, along with the other Asian currencies, because China, with its large reserves, can basically force the other currencies in Asia also upwards by buying them. And I don't think that China is terribly concerned about, say, a 10 or 20% appreciation of the yuan against the U.S. dollar. But what they don't like is to be pushed around by someone like Mr. Obama.
All right. Well, you know the region well, Marc, and I'm just curious as to what you think the link is, if any, that the Japanese government has intervened, is selling its yen. Does this complicate at all the China-yuan story?
Well, basically, we are in an Olympic game in the world to depreciate currencies. We don't have trade wars like in the 30s, where you had import restrictions and essentially trade barriers. But countries, in my opinion, a mistake, they try to remain competitive by having a low currency. And so everybody in the world tries to lower the value of its currency.
Hold that thought. We are back as promised with investor Marc Faber. He is the publisher of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom report, and he is joining us, or still staying with us. Thank goodness, Marc. Thanks, from Thailand. So we were talking before the break, and you said basically it's a mistake that every single country wants its currency to be low. I mean, we've seen it, at least with Japan, in very recent days. You like gold, but not currencies. Tell me, though, which currency is the least ugliest pick in the room?
Well, as I just indicated, I think the Asian currencies, including the Chinese yuan, will continue to appreciate. This year, the Malaysian ringgit is up 10%, the Thai baht is up almost 9%, and the stock markets of Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia are all up in U.S. dollar terms between 15 and 35%. I think we live in a new world in which emerging economies will have a larger and larger share of world stock market capitalization. It's doubled in the last 10 years already and stands now at 22% of global stock market capitalization. But I think in 10 years' time, emerging economies could be 50% of global stock market capitalization as a result, A, of currency gains against the U.S. dollar and the euro, and B, as a result of further capital gains in these markets, and C, because of new issues.
Yeah, we heard
the first two factors are the most important.
And we heard similar comments as well from the former World Bank President Wolfensohn on our air, the fact that he thinks that Asia will see 60% of global GDP, almost exactly what you said, by 2050. Where do you think...
Well, I think it will be in 10 years' time.
You think it's just going to be faster? So, Marc, with the idea that Asia is growing...
Not because Asia grows faster than before, but because the U.S. will not grow. If you have the president's wife going around schools and telling people that instead of working, they should become community leaders. We already have a community leader running the country. One is enough.
Yeah, one is enough. Well, speaking of the U.S. and its weakness, I know that you like gold because you're saying as long as Bernanke is in the Fed, that gold is just going to go higher. So I have to ask you, Marc, how high can gold go and by when?
We have to ask Mr. Bernanke, and not just him. The other central bankers are not much better because, as I said to you, it's a race to lower the value of your currency. As soon as your currency becomes very strong, you monetize. And so the U.S. Fed, by keeping on monetizing, can force the others to also monetize. So how high it will go, I don't know. But I continue to advise every responsible citizen of this world to accumulate some gold and keep it as cash, because it's, along with silver, palladium, and platinum, the only sound currencies.
Yeah, well, it seems like it is the fear of government trade, as our good friend Keith McCullough likes to say. What, Mark, does all this mean for the stock market? I mean, we hear a lot of different voices out there. Where does the S&P finish the year?
Well, I think that we had a surprisingly strong September, given the negative views that prevailed at the end of August, with everybody talking about the Hindenburg omen and sentiment extremely negative, the worst since March 2009. That could be expected, but I think that October, November could bring some downside turbulence.
How much?
But I would doubt the S&P drops below 950, because below 1,000, Q2 will come in earnest and in big amounts.
Okay. All right, Mark, we thank you as always for the time. Always glad to have your insight. Marc Faber joining us there on the phone from Thailand. He is the publisher of the Gloom, Boom, and Doom Report.